There are two kinds of quiet daughters in every house. The ones whose silence is obedience, and the ones whose silence is memory. Parents, as a rule, cannot tell them apart. Not until a morning comes when a folder gets slid across a kitchen table, and the daughter lifts her eyes, and the mother understands with sudden, terrible clarity which kind she raised. My name is Quinn Everett. I had just turned 18, and by 9 the next morning, my mom was sliding a manila folder across our kitchen table like it was breakfast. She smiled. She said, "Honey, we need to talk about that money." My blood ran cold. She had no idea I already knew. Before I take you into that kitchen, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop your city and your local time in the comments. I read everyone. Let me take you back to October. 6 months before the morning my family found out which daughter they had raised. It was a Tuesday. The kind of October Tuesday where the porch light clicks on by 5. I was cleaning my room. My grandpa's old cedar box sat on my shelf. He had given it to me on my 17th birthday, the last gift he handed me in person. I hadn't opened it in months. The hinges whispered when I lifted the lid. Inside, a pressed maple leaf from the yard behind the farmhouse, a photo of him and my grandma at their anniversary, and a white envelope, sealed and weighty. On the front, in his steady handwriting, "Open only if something feels off with your mother before your 18th birthday. Call David Caldwell immediately." I sat down on the edge of my bed. I didn't open it. Not yet. I held it. I turned it over. I stayed at his handwriting until it blurred. Grandpa had been dead a year and a half, and he had known. He had known enough to put a warning inside a cedar box and pray I would find it. Downstairs, I heard paper. The slow, careful crinkle of documents being shuffled, folded. My mom's voice pitched low. Mark's voice lower. I couldn't hear words. I didn't have to. I put the envelope back in the box. I closed the lid. I went downstairs and poured myself a glass of water. I said nothing about the kitchen light being on at 10:30 at night when my mother was supposed to be in bed. Looking back, that envelope was the first time someone had ever handed me a weapon. I just didn't recognize it yet. My dad died when I was 10. His name was Gregory Everett. He drove a silver Ford Ranger. One morning in November of 2018, he didn't come back from a delivery run. There was fog. There was a semi. There was a trooper at our front door with his hat in his hands. My mother cried for exactly 1 week. Then she started house hunting for a new kitchen. She remarried in 2020. Mark Hollis, contractor, big truck, big laugh. A daughter from his first marriage named Skylar, 2 years younger than me, who moved into the bedroom across the hall. I learned 3 things fast. 1. My mother punished his. If I cried, she called it drama. She'd sigh and go to the front porch with her wine. 2. My mother punished joy. If I laughed too loud, she called it showing off. She'd narrow her eyes and say, "Quinn." Inside voice. The only safe setting was flat. So I went flat. I went quiet. By 12, I had stopped spending my feelings around her. I saved them for Grandma Margaret's porch and Grandpa Harold's tomato vines and the pages of books where other people were allowed to feel things out loud. My mother thought quiet meant obedient. It didn't. Quiet meant I was watching. Quiet meant I was remembering. In my house, emotions were currency. I had stopped spending mine by 12. My mother called it quiet. I called it not giving her a weapon. 8 years later, she would slide a manila folder across a kitchen table and find out how much I had been paying attention. Dinner at the Hollis house ran on a schedule. 6:30. Mark came in through the garage, boots off at the laundry room, the smell of joint compound and work truck on him. He'd drop his keys on the counter, loud keys, and say something like, "Another one bailed," or "Kitchen in Conestoga had mold behind the drywall," or "Permit guys are crooks." My mother poured his wine before he asked. Skylar always talked. That evening, a Sunday in March, she had gotten her Bucknell admission email. Early decision. $6,000 to $5,000 a year before books. Mark raised his glass. "That's my girl." My mother touched Skylar's wrist. "We'll figure out the rest. Don't you worry." Skylar glanced at me. I was cutting my chicken. I said evenly, "I got the Penn State email yesterday. Main campus." A silence. My mother said, "That's nice, sweetheart." Mark grunted. "College is a scam. Real money's in the trades. but whatever. My mother smiled, her charity committee smile. Quinn, we'll talk about your future closer to your birthday. That phrase again. Closer to your birthday. She had said it 3 times in February, twice already in March. It didn't sound like a celebration. It sounded like an appointment. Mark topped off his glass and added, casual as weather, family money stays with family, Quinn. Not in some lawyer's vault. My mother cut him a look. Fast. The kind that says shut up too soon. I kept cutting my chicken. My grandma Margaret died when I was 14. Breast cancer. She fought it twice. The second time it fought back harder. She held my hand the afternoon she passed. She said, "You are a good girl. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I didn't cry in the hospital. I cried in the parking lot, in the passenger seat of Grandpa's Bic. He didn't shush me or sigh. He just said, "Let it out, Peanut. Let it out." Grandpa Harold held on for 2 more years. He got quieter, not sadder. Quieter, like a house at dusk. The summer I was 16, I moved into a spare room for July and August. I read to him from the chair by the window. I watered the tomatoes. I cooked the eggs the way he liked them, hard yolks, butter, salt. He died in September, 78 years old. Hot. At the funeral, my mother wore navy and cried at the right volumes. Mark stood in the back and checked his phone. The will was read 2 weeks later. There was a trust, my name on it, a number that made Mark's jaw go loose, about $680,000. Blue chip shares, some cash, the proceeds from a small lot Grandpa had sold in Bucks County. The terms were simple. The assets belonged to me. I couldn't touch the principal until my 18th birthday. On that day, full beneficial ownership transferred. The trustee's name on the paperwork was David Caldwell. Grandpa's written note inside the folder said 6 words, "Your choice, your life. Love, Grandpa." My mother read those 6 words with a look on her face I would never forget. Not sad, not proud, calculating. Grandpa had left me a door. My mother had already hired a locksmith. 6 months before my 18th birthday, a man in a gray suit started showing up at our house. Wednesdays at 4:30. Same car every time. A charcoal Lexus with an ugly plate frame that said Briggs & Associates, Lancaster. He stayed an hour and 15 minutes. He left with a leather binder under his arm. My mother said he was an insurance guy, then a financial planner, then 1 week, a friend of Mark's. The story changed. His binder didn't. One afternoon in January, I came home early from the library. My shift got cut. Snowstorm coming. I pushed through the mudroom door and heard papers on the kitchen table. I stopped. My mother said, "Once she signs, the rest is just paperwork." Mark said, "And if she hesitates?" My mother laughed. Short, dry. "Quinn. She'll sign. She always does." I stood in the mudroom with my boots on and my pulse in my ears. Then I opened the door loud. I called out, "Mom, I'm home early." I heard papers sweep. When I came into the kitchen, the table was clear. My mother was smiling. "Snow day. Huh? Want some cocoa?" "Sure." On the counter, under her purse, the corner of a folder stuck out. Cream-colored, embossed letterhead. Briggs & Associates. Family wealth planning. Skylar walked in behind me. She said, "Is that about Quinn's money?" My mother's smile didn't move. Mark said, "Sky, go upstairs." Skylar went upstairs. My mother handed me the cocoa. "Quinny, you're such a good girl." I took the mug. "Thanks, Mom." I went up to my room. That was the moment I stopped being the daughter who didn't know. I just didn't tell anyone I'd crossed over. I opened the envelope that Friday. I walked to Willow Creek Park with it tucked inside my hoodie pocket. The swings were empty. The sky was the color of wet pavement. I slit the seal with my thumbnail. The letter was 1 page, Grandpa's handwriting. "Peanut, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong with your mother. I've suspected it for a long time. I never wanted to poison you against her, but I couldn't leave without giving you a door to open. David Caldwell has been my attorney for 30 years. He knows everything. He's waiting for your call. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to choose. I believe you will choose well. Love, Grandpa." Below, in careful block letters, a phone number. Area code 717. I took out my phone. I dialed. A woman answered. Caldwell Estate Law. This is Paula. Hi. My name is Quinn Everett. My grandfather was Harold Everett. He told me to call Mr. Caldwell. Half a second of quiet. Hold on, sweetie. A click, then a warm baritone. Quinn, this is David Caldwell. I've been expecting your call. I couldn't speak for a beat. He said, your grandfather and I spoke about this possibility many times. Can you come to Lancaster next week? Tell your mother it's a college aid meeting. I said, yes. Good. And Quinn, don't change a thing at home. Not your face, not your schedule, not a word. For the first time in a long time, someone believed I could handle the truth. Caldwell's office was on the second floor of a brick building on Prince Street. Green banker's lamp on his desk. A shelf of Pennsylvania statute books. A plant he clearly hadn't been watering enough. He stood up when I walked in. Maybe 65. White hair, kind eyes. A suit that had been tailored 3 administrations ago. Sit. Tea. Water. He walked me through everything slowly. He used small words. He wrote down terms on a legal pad so I could see them. Trust. Beneficial interest. Fiduciary duty. Spendthrift. Irrevocable. He said, at midnight on your 18th birthday, Quinn, the assets your grandfather left you are legally yours. You have options. You can keep the current trust. You can dissolve it. Or you can move everything into a new structure you designed today. What do you recommend? A new irrevocable trust. Professional corporate trustee. I work with Midland Trust Services. You'd be the sole beneficiary. Distributions covered for education, housing, medical. Your mother, Mark Hollis, and Skylar Hollis would be excluded as beneficiaries and trustees. Permanently. I said, irrevocable means what? Once you sign, not even you can undo it. That's the point. It protects you from outside pressure, including your own in a weak moment. I thought about my mother's hand on my wrist. Her smile. Her closer to your birthday. I said, okay. He nodded. Then he looked down at his pad and back up. Quinn, before we go further, there's something I need to tell you about your mother's attorney. He folded his hands. Your mother has been working with a man named Lance Briggs. Briggs is a local estate attorney. He's been reprimanded twice by the state bar. He specializes in what my profession politely calls aggressive family planning. Meaning he'll draft documents most of us would walk away from. He opened a folder on his desk. He slid it halfway toward me. I could see the top page upside down. Everett Family Financial Unification Agreement. My full legal name in the subheader. Quinn Marie Everett. He said, a paralegal at Briggs's firm left for a different practice 2 weeks ago. She sent us drafts she was concerned about. What does the document do? It would make you a co-trustee with your mother. It would grant her durable financial power of attorney. And it would assign a significant portion of your beneficial interest to a holding company called Hollis Everett Holdings, LLC. I looked at the signature line. It was dated February 28th, 2 months before my birthday. While I was still 17. I looked up. I'd still be a minor. Correct. Your mother's signature as your guardian would be required alongside yours. That's their plan. Have you sign under maternal authority before the trust releases, while you still legally need her signature. I put the folder down carefully. My hands were steady. They surprised me. I said, 4 months. He said, I'm sorry, Quinn. 4 months that we know of. 4 months of me serving her coffee while she was building a cage. I said, let's build mine. We named the new trust together. He asked what I wanted to call it. I said, the Margaret Trust. He wrote it down. He didn't ask why. We built it piece by piece. Corporate trustee, Midland Trust Services, a Harrisburg firm with a clean 40-year record. Beneficiary, Quinn Marie Everett and her direct biological descendants, if any, in perpetuity. Excluded forever from beneficiary or trustee status, Caroline Everett Hollis, Mark Hollis, Skylar Hollis, and any entity in which any of the 3 held equity. Distributions authorized for tuition, housing, medical, emergency living expenses. Spendthrift clause. No creditors could attach. No one could pressure me into a lump sum withdrawal on anyone else's behalf. Irrevocable. No amendment. No termination. No reversal. Caldwell said, "You understand that this protects you from them. It also protects you from you. In a weak moment, 5 years from now, if your mother cries the right cries, you cannot undo this. That's on purpose." I said, "I know." We set the live execution for 1 second past midnight on April 15, 2026. Caldwell set a phone call for 9 the morning after. He said, "It's your moment, Quinn. Use it how you need to." The Sunday before my birthday, my mother made pot roast. Her something big is coming meal. Mark lit candles. Skylar put her phone face down. Over dinner, I floated a question, casual, curious, the voice of a daughter looking for guidance. "Mom, what's the difference between a trust and a family account?" She lit up like a porch lamp. "Oh, honey, trusts are complicated. They can fail if they're not managed by family who really cares." Mark nodded. "Lawyers drain them." My mother added, "You'd be shocked. Fees, delays, they nickel and dime you." I said, "Huh, that's scary." She said, "It's why family accounts work better. Shared goals, no strangers, just pooled." Mark said, "Family money stays in family hands, not with some corporate trustee up in Harrisburg." It was the word corporate that gave him away. I had never used that word in front of him. Neither had she. But Briggs would have. I said, "Huh," and said nothing more. Then Skylar, from her plate, without looking up, "Mom says the money was supposed to be all of ours anyway." Dead silence. My mother's fork froze half an inch above her plate. Mark said too loud, "Sky, honey, eat." I kept my face even. I reached for the potatoes. I passed the gravy. Inside my head, I was taking notes. 4 days now. I was counting. April 15th, 2026. 11:47 at night. My bedroom door was locked. My laptop was open. I was wearing pajamas, gray top, plaid pants, slippers. I wanted my signature to come from the version of me who slept in this house every night. At 11:52, Caldwell joined the Zoom. White hair, blue tie, green banker's lamp behind him. At 11:54, a woman from Midland Trust Services joined. Her name was Priya Desai. She said, "Happy almost birthday, Miss Everett." At 11:56, the online notary joined. Pennsylvania commissioned. Camera on. ID check completed. 11:59. Caldwell said, "Ready, Quinn." I said, "Yes." The cursor blinked in the signature field. Midnight. I typed my legal name. Quinn Marie Everett. Slow. Each letter on purpose. The notary confirmed. Priya confirmed. At 12:02, I clicked approve. Two-factor code accepted. At 12:03, Priya said, "Initiating wire." At 12:04, she said, "Confirmed. Funds received. $681,412.90. The Margaret Trust is funded. Fully executed. Irrevocable." Caldwell looked into the camera. He said, "Happy birthday, Miss Everett. The world is yours now." I realized I had been holding my breath for almost a minute. I let it out. "Thank you." He said, "Sleep if you can. Expect me at 9 tomorrow." The three of them dropped off. The Zoom window went quiet. Downstairs in the dark house, a refrigerator hummed. I closed my laptop. I Saturday. My hands tingled. For the first time in 6 months, I was tired. I lay down and I slept. Let me pause here for a second. If someone in your family has ever asked you to sign something you didn't fully understand, drop the word rooted in the comments. I want to know how many of us there are. Because what comes next isn't the ending. Not even close. I still had to go downstairs the next morning. I still had to sit across from the woman who had spent 4 months drafting papers about me. And she still thought she was going to win. 7:45, April 16th. The kitchen smelled like pancakes. My mother was at the stove in her robe. She turned, beamed. "There's my birthday girl. Happy 18th, sweetheart." She wrapped me in a hug that lasted 3 seconds longer than her hugs usually lasted. Mark was at the table in a polo. Skylar was in pajamas with her phone propped against the orange juice pitcher. A manila folder sat to the right of my mother's place setting. Not hidden. Not even slightly. 3 pancakes and a tower on my plate. Birthday candles. The thin kind. Unlit. My mother said, "Mark, light her candles." He pulled a lighter from his pocket. He lit 3 candles. She said, "Make a wish, Quinny." I leaned over the plate. I thought, I wish for my grandfather to know. I blew the candles out. She let me eat 2 bites of pancake. Then she folded her hands on the table. She used her warm voice. She said, "Honey, now that you're 18, there's something we need to talk about. That money from Grandpa." I set my fork down. "Okay." She slid the folder across. It came to rest against my plate. "It's nothing big. Just some family paperwork an attorney drew up to help us all be smart for the family." Mark said, "Nothing crazy. Just structure." I said, "May I look?" She said, "Of course, sweetheart. Take your time." I opened the folder. The cover page said Everett Family Financial Unification Agreement. Quinn Marie Everett, Principal. Beneath it, Caroline Everett Hullis, Successor Co-Trustee. Mark J. Hullis, Attorney in fact. I read every page. Not skimming. Reading. I turned each sheet with both hands. I followed every paragraph with my index finger. At the 2-minute mark, my mother's cheerful smile began to crack at the corners. At 4 minutes, she tapped her coffee mug. Twice. Quick. At 5 minutes, Mark said, "Quinn, sweetheart, you don't need to read every line." I said, "I like to understand what I'm signing." Mark said, "It's just structure. My guy's on standby to notarize this morning." I said, "Mark, you just said my guy." A silence. I turned to page 5. I tapped the paragraph. "This line says partial beneficial interest is assigned to Hullis Everett Holdings, LLC." What is Hullis Everett Holdings? My mother blinked. "Oh, a family entity for tax purposes. It's not really a thing." Mark cut in. "Quinn, stop. Sign the sticky pages. Eat your pancakes." I looked at him. Calm. Steady. "Mark, how long have you known Lance Briggs?" The name landed. Mark's jaw did something slight, but I saw it. My mother said too quickly, "Sweetheart, we haven't even told you the attorney's name yet." I said, "I know. That's what I'm noticing." I turned to the footer on the last page. Generated December 14th, 2025. Briggs & Associates. Document V4.3. 4 months. 4 versions. I closed the folder carefully. "Mom, this document was generated 4 months ago." She said, "Honey, lawyers keep old templates. Templates don't put a person's middle name in them." I flipped back to page 1 and pointed at my name. "This is mine. This is only mine." My mother's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Mark said, "Quinn, sign the pages." His voice was not warm anymore. I said, "Mark, your lawyer's name is on the letterhead. Briggs & Associates, Lancaster. I passed your lawyer at the country club Monday night. Navy blazer. Caesar salad." Mark said, "Don't get cute." "I'm not being cute. I'm reading." My mother tried again. Softer. "Quinny, honey, this is for your protection. You don't understand how taxes work. You don't understand what happens when someone your age inherits a lot of money. There are sharks out there." I said, "Mom." I didn't say no. I said I want to understand. She said, "There's nothing to understand. It's just family. Sign." I said, "Before I sign anything, I'd like to have our family attorney on the line just to explain it to me." I said the word "our" gently. That was the word that broke her face. Her smile locked. Her eyes flicked. Fast panic. She said, "We don't need Caldwell for this." I waited. I let the silence work. "Mom, I never told you who our family attorney was." The kitchen went quiet the way kitchens do when the refrigerator kicks off and nobody has spoken in a minute. I watched my mother's mouth open, then close, then open again. She said, "Grandpa mentioned him years ago. I must have remembered." I said, "Grandpa died 18 months ago. I've never said his name in this house." Mark said, "Quinn, stop." Skylar, quietly, from her chair, "Wait, who's Caldwell?" Mark snapped, "Not now, Sky." My phone, lying face up beside my plate, vibrated. The screen lit up. "David Caldwell, Esquire. 9:03 a.m. My mother's face lost the last of its color. I picked up the phone. I looked at her. I looked at Mark. I looked at Skylar. Do you mind if I put him on speaker? Mark half stood. Don't answer that. I think I will. I hit the green button. I hit speaker. I set the phone on the table between the folder and the maple syrup. Mr. Caldwell, you're on speaker. I'm at the kitchen table with my mother, Mark Hollis, and my sister, Skylar. His voice filled the kitchen, calm, low, the voice of a man who had done this exact thing in many kitchens before and knew exactly how to do it in mine. Good morning, Quinn. Happy birthday. I hope I'm not interrupting breakfast. You're not. We were just starting a conversation about money. Good timing, then. I wanted to formally confirm something with you, for the record. He paused. A page turned in his office 400 miles from nothing. Are you ready? Yes, he said, clearly and without hurry. I'm calling to confirm that the asset transfer we discussed completed successfully at 12:04 this morning. The Margaret Trust is fully funded. The trustee is Midland Trust Services. The transaction is legally irrevocable. The sound that happened in the kitchen wasn't a sound. It was the opposite of sound. My mother's fork dropped onto her plate. A small, clean clink. Mark's hands, which had been flat on the table, curled into fists. Skylar said, "What?" Caldwell went on, warmly, as if he hadn't just set a house on fire. Total funded amount, $681,412.90. Your first distribution request for fall tuition at Penn State is pre-approved. Everything is in order. Mark said, "What trust?" His voice came out strangled. The Margaret Trust, Mr. Hollis. Named, I believe, for Quinn's late grandmother. Established last night. My mother said, "Quinn, you didn't." I said, "Mom, I did." Caldwell said, "It means, Skylar, the funds your grandparents left to Quinn are now held by a corporate trustee. They can only be used for Quinn's benefit. They cannot be accessed by anyone else. Ever." Mark stood all the way up. Caldwell said pleasantly, "Mr. Hollis, please don't finish that sentence. You'll want to be careful about what's said on an open line." Mark didn't sit down. He also didn't keep talking. I watched my mother's face go through 4 expressions in 3 seconds: disbelief, calculation, fear, and finally, slowly, the expression I had been waiting 18 years to see. The expression that said, "I have lost." Caldwell said, "Incidentally, Quinn, I wanted to flag something else while we're all together." He said, "About 10 weeks ago, my office received a forwarded copy of a draft document originating from Briggs & Associates in Lancaster. A former paralegal there raised concerns and forwarded it through standard whistleblower channels." He paused. The document is titled Everett Family Financial Unification Agreement. It carries a signature line dated February 28th, while Quinn was still legally a minor in Pennsylvania. He paused again. "Quinn, can you describe what you're holding?" I said, "A manila folder. A document called Everett Family Financial Unification Agreement. 12 pages. Generated December 14th, 2025. Letterhead, Briggs & Associates. Version 4.3. Caldwell said, "Yes, that is the document." He numbered his points out loud. 1. The document was not enforceable. After midnight, the assets it attempted to direct no longer belonged to Quinn to assign. 2. The document was intended to be executed while Quinn was a minor. Execution would have required the mother's signature as guardian. That was a structural indicator of intent to use parental authority to direct a minor's future inheritance. 3. In Pennsylvania, a guardian owes a fiduciary duty to a minor child. Attempting to divert a minor's inheritance into an entity in which the guardian has personal financial interest, such as Hollis Everett Holdings LLC, formed November 2025, Mark Hollis sole member, was a fiduciary breach. 4. Caldwell had, as of the day prior, filed a formal complaint with the Pennsylvania Disciplinary Board regarding Lance Briggs's role in preparing this document and 3 previous drafts. Mr. Briggs had 2 prior reprimands. Caldwell expected he was not answering calls that morning. The manila folder on the table looked different now. Smaller, sadder, dead paper. I said, "Mom, Look at me. Her eyes came up slow. Did you know what he was drafting? She said, Quinn. Yes or no? She said, yes. I knew. Skylar made a sound I'd never heard her make. Mark slammed his palm flat on the table. The salt shaker jumped. He said, you did all this behind our backs. I looked at him the way I'd look at ice on the driveway every January of my life. Carefully, without sentiment. Mark, I did it in front of a licensed attorney at 12:01 in the morning on my 18th birthday, under full legal capacity. You did yours behind my back for 4 months while I was still 17. His face went purple. He said, we raised you. I said, Mark, you moved in when I was 12. What you raised was Skylar's bedroom furniture. My mother flinched. Caldwell, still on speaker, said with blade calm, Mr. Hollis, I'd advise you to take a breath. This conversation is being documented on my end for my client's protection. Mark stopped. He sat back down hard. He stared at the wall. I said, Mr. Caldwell, could I read something aloud for the record? Please. I opened the folder to page 9. I read, Acknowledgement of Family Financial Priorities, including tuition assistance for Skylar and Hollis at Bucknell University. I looked up at Skylar, at my mother, at Mark. So the whole thing was to pay for Skylar's school. Nobody said no. Nobody said yes. I closed the folder. I'll be keeping this. My attorney has asked for a copy. My mother said, Quinn. Mom, not right now. I don't have anything cruel to say, but I don't have anything kind either. Her tears started on cue, real tears. Her body could produce them, but the script underneath was one I had heard 100 times. After everything I've sacrificed for you, Quinn, this is how you repay me. I waited for the wave to pass. I said, Mom, I've been thinking about the word sacrifice for a long time. I'd like to come back to it with you when we're both calmer, with a professional in the room, a mediator, someone neutral. She said, I don't need a stranger to tell me how to be your mother. I think we do. I think we've needed one for a long time. Caldwell said, quietly, Quinn, Beth Everett is parked at the end of your driveway. I stood up. I picked up the folder. I picked up my phone. Thank you for breakfast, Mom. I walked to the coat rack. I put on my jacket. I stepped into my sneakers. I walked down the hall past the wedding photos. At the front door, I paused. I turned. Skylar was watching me. Just her. My mother had her face in her hands. Mark was staring at his coffee. I said, Sky, you're 16. You didn't do this. Don't carry it. Text me in a year. Skylar nodded once. I opened the door. The April sun was pale and honest. I walked down the driveway. Aunt Beth's Honda Civic was waiting with the engine running. If you just unclenched your jaw, tap that like button. It helps more than you know. I thought walking out that door was the ending. It wasn't. It was chapter 10 of 15. But I didn't know yet how small towns decide who the villain is, how fast, how quietly. And I didn't know about the phone calls that were about to hit my voicemail from people I hadn't spoken to in years. My mother wasn't done. Mark wasn't done. Willow Creek had opinions too. But that is a story for another day. What I know is this. You don't have to yell to win. You don't have to tear anyone down. You file the paperwork. You let the system do what it was built to do. You let the truth walk slowly toward daylight. And you let the people who hurt you watch their own ceilings come down, brick by brick, without your help. Grandpa said 6 words. Your choice. Your life. I made my choice. In a locked room. At midnight. In pajamas. With a laptop and a notary and a woman from Midland Trust Services named Priya who said, Happy almost birthday, Miss Everett. You are not dramatic. You are paying attention. If you want to hear what happened next, the attorney's suspension, the business collapse, the text from Skylar, and the first Sunday I understood that quiet could finally just mean quiet, it's linked in the description. See you there.
This story is made for entertainment and learning purposes only. It is not meant to hurt or target any person in real life. Revenge may feel satisfying for a moment, but real strength comes from patience and self-control. Always choose peace, growth, and a better path in life. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay positive,